This is Rebecca Evans here for WHRO FM.
Do you ever wonder what our lives would have been had we never put pen to paper? Had we never been afflicted by that curious condition which must have you turn life into words?
Anne Bronte speaks that line in the play Bronte by Polly Teale, opening Friday, July 26th at the Zeiders American Dream Theater and presented by a new group of Regent University theater students called the Inspire Collaborative. Bronte narrates the lives and creative processes of Charlotte, Anne, and Emily Bronte. The Bronte sisters grew up in relative isolation, devouring every book they could find and writing some of the greatest novels of all time under male pen names. I had members of the creative team of Bronte into the studio, assistant director Jackie Adonis and cast members Whitney Bates and Morgan Pettigrew to talk about their upcoming performances. Can you guys tell me a little bit each about the characters that you play?
Well, I play Charlotte. Out of the three, she's the most well-known. People know the most about her. In fact, that's part of the beginning of the play is Charlotte talks about, well, I wrote down all these letters and all these diaries and so many stories as I was growing up. Her audience knows her better than the people that even knew her when she was alive. And so she's the author of Jane Eyre, and she wrote The Professor and Villette and a couple of other books and some small fiction books with her brother when she was younger.
I play Anne Bronte. She's the youngest of the sisters, and she, interestingly enough, is most well known for the tenant of Wildfell Hall because she took the kind of romantic archetype of this dark, brooding, artistic, mysterious man that, must be redeemed by the virtuous woman. She took that idea and turned it on its head by making that dark, brooding, mysterious character a female.
I wanted to ask what your personal experiences have been with the Bronte novels. Did you grow up reading them?
I honestly did not care for Jane Eyre. I was like, Jane's life is awful. I don't want to read any more of it. I will read SparkNotes and write a book report. Got an A.
Okay.
I also did not care for Wuthering Heights. I was like, this is also awful. Goodbye.
Wow.
But when I saw actually the actress who plays Emily Bronte in our production, she actually directed Bronte at Regent University last year. And when I saw it, I really got hooked on how Polly Teale constructed this play from their lives and from the actual novels. And I guess now that I'm not in high school, I reread the books and I have a newfound appreciation for them.
I didn't read Jane Eyre as a child, which is probably a good thing. My mother is a librarian, and so I watched the movie because she was very much into Jane Austen and her books, and then she showed me the Bronte stuff when I got a little bit older. My memories of it are just the moment where Jane discovers the madwoman in the attic when she meets Bertha, because it's such a powerful moment. And now revisiting it later, I'm like, oh, there are so many things that are like foreshadowing that moment towards the end of the movie, like when she's a child. I completely forgot that was even part of the story. For some reason, I thought the story started when she was an adult. It doesn't. It starts when she's a child and she sees a ghost. And in the house that she's living in, she's locked away by her cousins and she sees this ghost and it scares her. And that's kind of what, it's plants it in your brain. And that's something that really drew me in this play is it goes back to when they were children and creating their stories and just how early they started with this whole literary path and the wild imaginations that they had and the little seeds that are planted when we're young that come to fruition later on in our life that we just never see it coming, even though it was there when we were kids.
I personally, Wuthering Heights was my favorite. I think it was because I was a very dramatic and moody teenager. And so I really connected with that, the pathos of unrequited love and it's just out of reach and if I could only get to it. But now as an adult, I look at that and I realize that what Anne does in Tenet of Wildfell Hall is so important because she was able to step outside of what her sisters were experiencing and look at it from a more balanced perspective. And she takes the idea of okay, so what if you did that in real life? What if you went after this unrequited love of yours and this dastardly man who breaks all the rules? What would living with him be like? And it's not a pretty picture. And as an adult who's, in a happy relationship and trying to live a balanced life, it's okay, this is a really important voice for this time period because so much of the literature in the Romantic era leading up to what Anne wrote was showing this man, this figure as a hero, whereas she kind of breaks it down and says, no, he's going to continue to have these negative influences on the women that he's with throughout his life. And so her character has to leave and make her own way as an artist. And I think that that's a fantastic tale, especially for women in this time period to read. Sometimes you have to go and make your own way and find your own life. And I think that's very inspiring from a woman in this time period. That's a very modern idea. And this is coming out of like the mid 1800s. Like, to me, that blows my mind. I love that.
Do you guys think the audience needs to be familiar with the Bronte novels to really appreciate and understand the play?
The show is less about specifically their works and more about how their lives run parallel to what they were creating at the same time. Often we are influenced by what we're creating at the same time that we're creating it out of what we've been influenced by, and that kind of wonderful, like, cyclical experience that happens as a creator or a writer or any sort of creative person. Hopefully, even if they haven't read the books, they'll understand that this is what a creative process looks like.
Bronte plays at the Zeiders American Dream Theater next weekend, opening on Friday, July 26th. Learn more at thez.org. This is Rebecca Evans here for WHRO FM.